in to tonight's episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I'm so glad you've decided to join us for another fabulous little half hour where we're going to talk all things motorsports, because we had a big, packed weekend of racing that happened this past weekend, and then we've got even more things coming up this week, and then we've got to get you ready for. And all on top of that, we've got news and notes and things that we've got to cover all over the racing world. So, before we do that, be sure, if you like this show, to go ahead and give me a nice follow on social media. You can do so by looking up at rpeeters33. That's RPEETERS 33. And then make sure to always have that WTHR Plus app installed in your smart TV so you get brand new episodes of the Racing Report each and every week that they're released. And they're always there for you. They'll always be there. And you can also check them out on YouTube, however you want to get them. But that WTHR Plus app is probably the best way to go. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on into the news of the week. There's a lot going on, especially here in the world of Formula One. We got the news today, on Wednesday, that Mercedes has confirmed that their lineup will remain unchanged for 2026, with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli being retained by the German constructor. So there's no more rumors about Max Verstappen going to Mercedes. We could put all that to rest right now. We know that lineup unchanged for Mercedes going forward into 2026. So that's some good news. But there's also some news in the world of F1 that, boy, it's interesting. And if you haven't been following this, I highly recommend giving it a chance, because it is a very interesting court drama. We've talked about all this year. It seems like there's lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit going on all over the world of motorsports, especially in NASCAR. But now we've got one in the world of IndyCar / Formula One that's been quite intriguing, to say the least. So obviously the hearing for the lawsuit between Alex Palou, Chip Ganassi Racing, and McLaren is ongoing, and we got a lot of details from that case over the past week. Motorsport Magazine was mainly the main source that was there covering it, so if you haven't already read, that's where you can get that. Obviously, you will have to subscribe after you run out of your free articles, but I'll try and summarize things as best I can, but I do highly recommend checking out those series of articles, because they are very well done, and they include a lot of great reporting and just, in general, great details about the case. So some of those things that are going on right now is, obviously, Alex Palou has testified, Zach Brown has testified, and we've heard from both of those main parties right now. And Palou seems to claim that he was told that he would be under consideration for an F1 seat if he moved to McLaren for, I believe that was supposed to be the 2022 season or 2023 season. And then what ended up happening was McLaren signed Oscar Piastri, which obviously we all know how that went down. Alpine said they'd signed him, but then he said, no, that's not true. And then that was around the same time that Palou said, hey, whoa, hold on, I'm actually going to McLaren, when Chip Ganassi announced that they'd re-signed him. And so all of that kind of, if you remember that, we've got to go back about 3 years now since that happened. And it was a big deal in the motorsports world, but obviously we all knew, what we know now is that Oscar Piastri ended up going to McLaren, and Alex Palou basically was left on the sidelines without a chance at McLaren. But here's what basically happened. So Palou was supposed to go to McLaren in 2023. That was based upon the deal. Now, McLaren had talked to him at the end of 2021 after he won his first IndyCar championship, and they were basically like, hey, let's have a conversation. Mainly Zach Brown was the one having those conversations with Alex Palou. At least that's what, according to the court hearing that we've gotten more information about. So essentially what then happened from there is McLaren essentially was planning to put Palou in its car number 6. Okay, that's what they wanted to do. They were going to have that their three-car team, and Palou was going to be a part of that. But what ended up happening was when Piastri was announced to be going to McLaren, apparently this is what happened. Then team principal Andreas Seidel, who was the team principal at McLaren at this time, he signed Piastri either against Zach Brown's wishes or against his knowledge, without his knowledge. It's not really clear, but basically Piastri was signed, and as soon as that happened, Palou was like, wait a minute, the whole reason I joined this team was because I was supposed to be in contention for that seat. And so Zach Brown then says, okay, well, we'll see how you do in 2023 in IndyCar, and then we'll measure your stats with Oscar Piastri. And Palou sitting here like, well, how's that even fair? You're going to measure my stats in IndyCar against his stats in Formula One. How is that fair? And if you think about it too, this is what's also crazy is Zach Brown was basically portraying to Palou, I guess, at least this is what it seems, that Piastri was not a sure thing, that he could have flamed out in 2023 if he didn't do well enough. It seems like Zach Brown did not have as much confidence in Oscar Piastri as he might have had in someone like Alex Palou. But even then, so obviously we talked about all 2024 McLaren trying to find somebody to take over that number 6 car. Obviously it was supposed to be David Malukas. That didn't end up happening. And then they replaced him with Callum Ilott for the Indy 500, Teo Pulcher for a couple of races, and then they ended up just signing Nolan Siegel. Well, in those court documents, this is what not really court documents. I don't think we read the documents, but at least in that hearing, McLaren all but admitted that they signed Nolan Siegel for the sole reason of making up the lost funds that they missed out on by not having Palou in the car. So he was supposed to have a deal with NTT Data. They were supposed to sponsor Palou for a certain amount of money. When that didn't happen, McLaren needed a way to offset the losses. So what did they do? They came in and signed Nolan Siegel. Now it's interesting to hear that in these hearing and compare it to what they said about Nolan Siegel when they signed him. It seemed as though Tony Kanaan was very much like, I'm willing to risk my entire job for this kid. Well, I don't think he was risking much. I think that they just needed to. Another thing that's really crazy and interesting about this is the disappearing texts that allegedly McLaren employees had to have that option selected on their cell phones when they were communicating with the encrypted messaging app WhatsApp. What's interesting this is in the court hearing. They had a text message from Gavin Ward, who used to be with the McLaren IndyCar team, and then they parted ways earlier this year. And he apparently texted his lawyer, I'm so glad, something along the lines of, I'm so glad I don't have to have disappearing messages turned on anymore. And that was apparently a big piece in the lawsuit because now McLaren apparently is being accused of trying to hide evidence for this lawsuit. Very interesting. Lots of things, lots of moving parts, very crazy things. And then the last thing I want to talk about here, this is kind of the craziest piece of it that we learned. So apparently Alex Palou claims that AlphaTauri, which now operates as RB, the Racing Bulls or whatever, was apparently considering signing him for the 2024 season. And this was an option for Palou, and he definitely saw a path to F1 one way or another. And why not? He had won the IndyCar championship, and he was already having one heck of a season. He finished second in the Indy 500 2021, had a great season 2022, was coming off a great season 2023, won the championship again in 2023, obviously. But for 2024, during that 2023 season, apparently the AlphaTauri team was in consideration with signing him. But what ended up happening, how that all fell through, was that apparently there was a phone call between Zach Brown and Helmut Marko, and Palou has no idea what happened during that phone call. But allegedly, after that phone call was completed, Helmut Marko basically said, yeah, we no longer want to sign him. Don't know what was said in that phone conversation. We have no idea. Palou has no idea, and this is all alleged. It's key. It's important. It's very important to keep in mind that a lot of this is alleged. This is just what's being discussed right now in the court. Okay, there's a little bit of a break in the case right now. They're supposed to resume on October 20th, so it'll be next week, I believe. By the time we come back here next week, we'll have something. Hopefully, have a little bit of an update to what's going on in that lawsuit. But definitely, like I said, check out Motorsport Magazine. You won't regret it. It's very juicy. The details of this are very interesting. There's some interesting shots at Marcus Ericsson. There's some interesting information there about Alexander Rossi. Just lots of stuff that I don't have exactly a lot of time to cover right now, but definitely it's worth taking a look at if you get the chance. And then as we move on into the final piece of Formula One news, let's talk about this. Apple is expected to confirm its new F1 media rights deal this weekend at the United States Grand Prix. And the package is reported to be worth around $140 million per year. And it is highly likely, though it has not been confirmed, that when this deal is announced and is signed and is cleared and everything, F1 TV in the United States is expected to shutter, because apparently that was the big hang-up from Apple even wanting to put money into this, because it didn't make sense. If we've got exclusive streaming rights, why is F1 TV still here? Again, that is not confirmed, only a rumor right now, but if this is the case, if this does end up happening, I would not be surprised if we get that news as well, that F1 TV in the United States will be donezo. All right, running out a little bit of time here before our first break, so let's go ahead and jump into the IndyCar news of the week. Lots to get to here. Well, maybe not lots, but some big pieces of news. The silly season dominoes continue to fall. Rinus VeeKay is joining Juncos Hollinger Racing for the 2026 season. We learned that earlier this week. It is unknown currently, though, who his teammate will be. Now, it's understood that Stingray Rob has a multi-year deal with Juncos Hollinger Racing. So maybe he gets replaced, maybe he doesn't. A lot of this also depends on how much funding Juncos Hollinger gets for this upcoming season. They've been on the record saying they don't want to have pay drivers if they don't have to. So that makes you wonder, well, if they're able to bring in Rinus VeeKay, I wonder what that means for their second car. Now, I understand there's a lot of rumors that since they did test James Rowe at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course on Monday, that could be a possibility. But again, nobody really knows. Stingray Rob, as they said last year, is apparently contracted through at least the 2026 season. But again, anything could change, and I'd be curious to see what ends up happening. But I'm leaning toward a very likely. My personal opinion is I think that what will probably end up happening is you'll see Stingray come back. But again, who knows? Who knows? Anything is possible right now. We still got a handful of rides open in the IndyCar paddock right now. I believe the number 4 car for AJ Foyt Racing is still open. Obviously, with David Malukas moving on to Team Penske. You've got the Dale Coyne entry that is open. You've got one Dale Coyne entry. And then you've got maybe 1 to 2 Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing car entries up in the air. More likely than not, I think that team will retain Louis Foster, but I don't think Devlin DeFrancesco is going to stick around. And that leads us into our next piece of news here, because following Monday's test at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, Mick Schumacher says his options for 2026 are, quote, very open, and is considering IndyCar as a career option. Remember, he had a actually fairly successful test with Rahal Letterman Lanigan. He was at the top or near the top of the board basically every single the entire session. He was setting lap times that were not too far off the pole speeds from the most recent race there from last May. Very interesting to see how he's doing. But the way he seemed to talk about it was like, I like single-seaters. I want to be in a single-seater if I can. And if this is my best option to race single-seaters, then so be it. Now, something else that he said is that whatever he decides to do for next year, he's going to focus on it, which means if he decides to do IndyCar, he's not going to do WEC. If he decides to do WEC, he's not going to do IndyCar. So lots of things could be up in the air, but I think that was a fairly successful test. I think Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing is probably very happy with those testing results, and I'll be curious to see what ends up happening, and maybe if we see Mick Schumacher on the IndyCar grid next year. Who knows? Who knows? We've talked about it a couple of times, but now I'm kind of curious to see what all happens. But anyway, that is it for this segment of the show. Let's go ahead and take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss the news and notes out of the world of supercars and the world of NASCAR. So don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thanks so much for hanging out with us through the break there. Let's go ahead and jump on into the supercars news. A lot of stuff to talk about here real quick because the Bathurst 1000 was this weekend. We'll be talking about that coming up here later on in the show. But as a result of the Bathurst 1000 being completed over the course of the weekend, the Enduros are now done, and the inaugural 10 drivers that will compete in the finals have been released. And so I'll read them here for you. Brock Feeney, Matt Payne, Will Brown, Cam Waters, Brody Kostecki, Chaz Mostert, Anton De Pasquale, Thomas Randall, Ryan Wood, and Kai Allen are your 10 drivers that will be going for a championship over the next 3 events, which roughly equates to several, like almost 9-ish races before we get to the Adelaide Grand Final, which, remember, Austin Cindric will be racing in coming up here later next month. But again, a very dramatic Bathurst 1000 for a number of reasons, not just because of the conditions and the overall emotions of the race, but also because it was the cutoff race. And as a result, Cam Hill was 11th in points. He missed the cutoff by just 3 points. Ugh. Especially in an era of, you don't really talk about playoff racing or chase racing outside of NASCAR, but now we're talking about it in Supercars, and it's still kind of weird. It still feels weird to discuss, saying like, wow, a driver missed the cutoff in something other than NASCAR. That's just kind of unusual. But yeah, definitely Cam Hill was talking about it kind of very candidly over the course of the weekend, or earlier this week, I should say, just about missing out on an opportunity to run for the championship. But we, at the very least, we do know now the 10 drivers that will be in that running, and I'll be very curious to see how that goes. Obviously, Matt Payne, by virtue of his Bathurst 1000 victory, he is seated second, and not too bad. Not too bad if I do say so myself. So anyway, next piece of Supercars news, also is the final Supercars news. James Courtney is expected to join Team 18 as a co-driver in 2026, though this has not been formally confirmed. It is currently heavily rumored that that is where the soon-to-be retiring James Courtney will land next year. Obviously, he is already announced earlier this year that he's going to retire from full-time competition at the conclusion of this season, but now it looks like he could take a co-driver role for the new GM homologation team in Team 18. So very good news there, but definitely we're still waiting for that to be confirmed. Moving on into the world of NASCAR, let's go ahead and transition, get into the world of NASCAR. There's a lot going on that we got to talk about. Some big news, some small news, news all over the place. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. So following a crash this past weekend at Las Vegas between Ty Dillon and playoff contender William Byron at Las Vegas, Ty Dillon's spotter Joe White has said he was released from Kaulig Racing. And what's crazy is they didn't just sit him down on Monday and say, we're sorry, your services will no longer be needed. Apparently, he tweeted on Wednesday that he showed up to the track. He showed up to Talladega, ready to work, and they told him he'd been fired. So he had to take an Uber back to the airport to get back home. Yikes. Not exactly the right way to fire a guy. But what's even crazier is he already wasn't going to spot next year. He was down to his last 3 races as a spotter, and he was already supposed to move to a different role within that organization of Kaulig Racing for next year. But now instead, he's just been fired. But as of right now, like I said, that's all we know. As of the recording of this, we could find out more things coming up later on in the next week. But as of right now, a very shocking development, to say the least, within the NASCAR garage area. Frank Dini will spot for Dillon this weekend. Just a heads up there. And then meanwhile, this was also another big bombshell that we got earlier this week. Justin Haley and Spire Motorsports have announced that they will part ways at the conclusion of the 2025 season. As of right now, I don't know where Justin Haley's going to land, and nobody knows who's going to slide into that number 7. Though I think there's been rumors that it could be Daniel Suarez, but I believe that's just the Daily Downfords messing with us. So I'm not going to take that at face value, though. I mean, it makes sense, but again, that's a parody Twitter account. I'm not going to ever take what that says at face value. Now, if a certain other Twitter user that I don't think I could say their name out loud says something, maybe I'll consider reporting that. But as of right now, I'm not. Take that with a huge grain of salt. Probably, in fact, take it with the whole beach. take it with the whole container of sand or salt. whatever I'm talking about. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next piece of news here. Very interesting. Matt DiBenedetto and Viking Motorsports have parted ways effective immediately. That was a little bit unexpected. Didn't really expect that. Viking Motorsports seemed very committed to Matt DiBenedetto, but now suddenly they're going in a different direction, and they've signed Connor Mozak to finish out the season with them in that number 99 entry in the Xfinity Series. So definitely curious to see what ended up happening there, but not the first time Matt DiBenedetto has been let go before the end of a season. Just very curious at what's going on there. Meanwhile, outside of some of the silly season news, let's go back into some of the more business-oriented news for NASCAR. Adam Stern and Sports Business Journal report that Sunoco is expected to renew its exclusive sponsorship deal with NASCAR, following reports that the company planned not to renew their deal. Apparently now they're saying yes, they are close to renewing this deal, though there are some concerns about what that company's long-term future is with that sponsorship role, especially given the fact that it's been reported that Sunoco is probably getting out of the consumer gas station business and going more to a B2B company where they provide the gas to different companies. They've already sold off a number of their gas stations to 7-Eleven and other companies as well as they begin to wind down operations, so they don't really need to advertise to consumers. So that's why this potential sponsorship renewal is being kind of questioned. How long is it going to be? How many years are they going to renew it for if they do renew it? A lot of things to be determined still. So we'll keep you up on that and see who is the official fuel sponsor of NASCAR beginning in 2026 and whether or not it is Sunoco. All right, next piece of news here, some good news for fans of Frankie Muniz. He is all healed up from his injury in which he fell while cleaning his gutters, I believe. That's what he was doing. At his home, and he's all healed up, and he's going to be back in the race truck this weekend at Talladega driving again. So good to see Frankie Muniz back in NASCAR again. And then also racing this weekend in a truck at Talladega is going to be J.J. Yaley driving the number 7 Spire Motorsports truck. He's super excited to get in this opportunity. So definitely good news for J.J. Yaley there, getting another good opportunity to hopefully maybe go out there and impress some people driving top-tier equipment as opposed to whatever he can find. But anyway, that is it for this segment of the show, but we're going to take another break. This could be our last break of the show, and when we come back, we're going to recap all the races that happened this past weekend, and we're going to get you ready for all the races that are coming up this weekend. So don't go anywhere. You're watching The Racing Report. And welcome back to the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Let's get you caught up on all the races that happened this past weekend. It was a very fun race out there in Las Vegas for the NASCAR Cup Series. Denny Hamlin ended up winning that race, and it appeared from the moment the green flag flew on that race that he was not going to be denied. He was very emotional after the race, saying he won the race for his dad, who's obviously battling some health issues. Great job by Denny to just drive up through the field. I mean, the man was on a mission coming out of that final restart. Definitely, he was not going to be denied that race, and now he's going to have an opportunity to run and possibly maybe have an opportunity at winning his first ever NASCAR Cup Series championship. I know that's what his goal is, and especially winning at Las Vegas, the first round of the round of 8. He's got 2 races where he doesn't have to worry. He doesn't have to worry at all what happens at Talladega, which is definitely going to be a big worry off his back, and then also not having to worry about what happens at Martinsville. He's just got to focus on Phoenix. That's all he's got to do. He's just got to focus on Phoenix, and usually the guy who wins that first round of 8 is usually favored a little bit higher to win the overall championship compared to the drivers who get in either on the second or the final race of the round of 8. So good news there for Denny Hamlin. Meanwhile, in the Xfinity Series, the race before the Cup Series on Saturday night, that was a good old-fashioned dogfight between Aric Almirola and Connor Zilisch. Obviously, Almirola coming home. It seems like it's either Almirola or Connor Zilisch that's going to win one of these Xfinity races. It all depends on whether or not Almirola is even in the race. But Almirola was victorious. That was just another win of his part-time, the second year where he's running part-time, really, in the Xfinity Series. For Joe Gibbs Racing, going out there and winning more races. That's all you can ask of a guy like that when you got him in there just for a handful of races throughout the season. And the only races that he hasn't finished, I think in the top 10, top 15, I believe it's top 15, have been the 3 races, and those are races where he crashed. And they were Daytona, Talladega, and Indianapolis, where he got taken out by Austin Hill. So if you're Eric Almirola, you're having one heck of a season in the Xfinity Series, despite only running part-time. So, but overall, great fun race there at Las Vegas, overall in both the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series. Fans out there they know what they're getting. They're getting fun races. They've not been let down yet since the next-gen car has been announced. And, of course, they haven't been let down in the Xfinity Series at all. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and talk about the Bathurst 1000 that was this weekend. And I'm going to just tell everybody right now, even if you've never watched Supercars in your life, you have no idea what I'm talking about every single week when I talk about the Supercars. You look at me and you're like, what is this? What is this Supercars? What's he talking about here? I don't understand any of this. Right now, after you're done with watching this, obviously, but when you get a chance, pull up YouTube and type in Bathurst 1000 highlights. You will not regret it. You will not be disappointed. Probably one of the best races I've seen all year, if not the best race all year. First of all, it's the Bathurst 1000. It's the great race. It's 1,000 kilometers, 161 laps, up and down, Mount Panorama, a mountain, in one of the trickiest and most treacherous race courses ever designed by man. And then you throw in a little rain. You throw in a little rain halfway through the race. And you keep that rain going all the way through the end. And you keep throwing in curveballs here, there, left, and right. You've got drivers trying to make it into the finals. You've got drivers trying to win the race. You've got co-drivers going out there trying to prove that they still have it or that they belong, depending on how old they are. Just overall, an incredible event. And not to mention, it was won by 2 drivers that I don't think anybody picked. Matt Payne and Garth Tander. Garth Tander, obviously, he's been a reporter, a commentator, a pit reporter on the television broadcasts since he retired from Supercars several years ago. But he's been running co-driver roles. He picked up a deal to run the co-driver role with Grove Racing this past week, or Penrite Racing at Bathurst in the Enduros. And what ends up happening, him and Matt Payne go out there and win. And it didn't even look like that was a sure deal. It looked like they were probably not going to win a handful of times during that race, especially during the end of the race. But they ended up coming back, pulling it off, and just, oh my gosh, seriously. Check out those highlights. You will not be disappointed. Arguably one of the best races all year, if not the best race all year, though, there's still a handful of races going on in NASCAR and Formula One, and of course Supercars still has a handful of races left as well, but just in general, great race. Highly recommend checking that out if you get a chance. But that wasn't the only fun race that was going on. That was a very long race. The Petit Le Mans was also this past weekend. And what do you know? After not winning since 2023, Cadillac Whelen goes out now and wins the last 2 races. So they won the penultimate race of the season at Indianapolis, and now they come out there and they win again at Road Atlanta. Good for them. Great deal. That's Jack Aitken, Earl Bamper, and Frederick Vesti going out there and getting the win at the Petit Le Mans. It looked like a huge crowd. It looked like everybody was in town to see that race. Looked like one of the biggest crowds there at Road Atlanta. So definitely, man, we're living in a golden age of sports car racing, and it's just great to see. I love to see how many fans were out there. Looked like a great race in general. And we also crowned a champion. The Penske Porsche number 6 won the GTP championship, the overall championship in the IMSA WeatherTech Series. That's Matt Campbell and Matthew Jaminet. Great season, obviously. It was inevitable that they were probably going to end up winning that championship, but still a good job for them. Well fought in general. Just a fun little Petit Le Mans this past weekend. But that wasn't the only race. Those weren't the only races. No, we still had a Super Formula event in Fuji over the weekend. However, the second of the 2 races was canceled due to lots of rain, which is not inherently uncommon in Japan. But in the first race that was held, Sasha Fenitraz Fenestraz. Sorry, it's been a while. I haven't talked about him in a long time. The Argentinian driver gets his second career Super Formula victory, which is great to see after several seasons and kind of lackluster performances in Formula E. Now he's kind of trying to revitalize his career over in Japan. This is interesting because he's Argentinian, so he's from South America, but he's revitalizing his career in Japan. And he had a pretty darn good job doing it, getting that win over the course of the weekend. So one more race left in the Super Formula calendar, and that'll be coming up here in a couple of weeks. So let's talk about the races that are coming up this weekend, because we do have a handful of them. All three NASCAR races this weekend will be on broadcast TV for the first time since July 2000. Get ready for that. You don't need cable. You don't need any cable subscription or streaming subscription or what have you in order to watch the three NASCAR races that are on this weekend. So obviously the Fox is televising the Truck Series race that'll come up on Friday afternoon. Then the CW has the Xfinity race on Saturday, and NBC has the Cup race on Sunday. So a lot to look forward to there. Obviously it's Talladega. It's one of the most popular NASCAR races of the season. Lots to look forward to, and that's not all, because we've also got the Formula One United States Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas this weekend as well, and it's a sprint weekend. So there's just lots of racing all to go around this weekend coming up. It's going to be a great one. Late fall, or mid to late fall, kind of mid-October, that kind of racing. It's always fun, kind of nice to see the trees changing and know that we've got championships to wrap up, especially in NASCAR and in Formula One. So be looking forward to those races. But that's it for this week's episode of the Racing Report. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. And again, remember, if you like this show, make sure to follow me on social media. Do so by looking up at rpeters33, and then make sure to have that WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV, because we release new episodes every single week, and you won't want to miss a single one if you want to stay in the loop for all things racing. So that's it for this week's episode for WTHR Plus. My name is Rob Peeters, and this has been the Racing Report.